just real quick, appreciate everybody being here. If you're an agency head or an agency representative, we'd like for you to come up front.
I think we're going to be over here, Kevin. So I think we're going to be over here.
Yep.
Yeah.
You gentlemen can kind of spread out and then kind of do at least 2 rows. We might need to do 3, but if we can get it in 2, that would be great. And then what I'll probably do to save space is Chief will have you and Kevin and Kyle kind of standing off to the side to give them more room.
Let them spread out.
Okay. All right.
Come on in front, and then you can make like a second row. It's almost like doing school picture day. Front row, take a knee.
Hey, Vern's right?
Yes.
We'll bring you over here with us.
Yep. Yep, right in front. That works perfectly.
Is Rodney speaking? You're supposed to be over here.
Alrighty, everybody ready to go? Good afternoon. My name is Adam Gobb. I'm the Communications Director for Gaston County. We're here this afternoon to talk about Operation Winter Guardian, and we're going to have 3 speakers coming up. The first is Gaston County Police Chief Stephen Zill. We're going to have the names and spellings up on the board behind me so that you'll be able to have all those. Then we're going to have Special Agent in Charge Kevin Roughton with the Department of, well, State Bureau of Investigation, but also the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And then we're going to have Acting Special Agent in Charge Kyle Burns with Homeland Security Investigations. And then once Acting SAC Burns is done talking, I'll come back up, we'll take a few questions, and then we'll wrap things up. Just some quick housekeeping notes. You should all have a hard copy of the press release that goes with this. We'll also be sending to your media outlets and your desks a digital copy of that goes along with the headshots of all the different individuals that have been arrested in this operation. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Zill. Chief.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As Adam mentioned, we've gathered here today to talk about a successful operation that targeted individuals in this community that posed a significant risk to the safety and well-being of our community. Over the last 5 years, the Gaston County Police Department has seen a significant increase in the number of internet crimes against children cases, or what we refer to as ICAC cases. And just to give you some perspective on that, in 2019, we investigated 20 ICAC cases annually. In 2023, that number rose to over 140 cases. So we decided to create a partnership with local, state, and federal agencies, as well as our district attorney's office, and launch a joint investigation in January of this year. That investigation was designed to target online child predators. And as a result, 4 individuals were arrested here in Gaston County, and many others were arrested in counties throughout North and South Carolina, as well as Pennsylvania. So this operation is consistent with Gaston County Police's mission of enhancing the safety and security of our community through police services. It also highlights our commitment to partnering with other law enforcement agencies to protect our communities and our children. The Gaston County piece of this investigation is part of a larger operation, Operation Winter Guardian. That's a statewide effort, and I'm going to bring up Special Agent Kevin Roughton to speak on that.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today, and I'm appreciative to all of the agencies that took part in this operation. This is not something that any one of our agencies
could have done on our own, and certainly is something that needs the attention and needs the focus that it's been given during this operation. As the chief alluded to, this is a two-part operation. So some of those arrests were here in Gaston County, and others I'll talk about in just a moment were across the state and into other states. But before I go into the other piece of this operation, I do want to take a step back, kind of like the chief did, and talk about the larger scope of internet crimes in general. We receive cyber tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The National Center receives those tips from online child exploitation or potential solicitation, primarily from service providers. So think Facebook, Google, Microsoft. It could be a public report, but most of them are electronically reported through service providers. You see on the screen the huge increase that we've seen just in recent years. This particular chart references from 2019 up through current. What I would say about that is we all know that 2020 was a little different year, right? And in 2020, in the face of a global pandemic, we saw many people go work remotely. We saw students go virtual classrooms. And so literally there were more people online at the same time than ever before in the history of the world. As we have since normalized life for the most part after that pandemic, we've not seen the decrease in the number of cyber tip reports. And in fact, it's actually gone the opposite way, and we're continuing to see increases in that to where we're receiving now more than ever. So that's kind of the landscape of what is happening in the realm of internet crimes against children. And that's why we have partnerships through an ICAC task force across the state. There are about 250 agencies that are part of the North Carolina ICAC task force. And these are the tips that go out to them on a daily basis. And these are the tips that get worked regularly. Operation Winter Guardian was not that. It was a step out away from those tips that are coming in and those reports that we already know about, and a way to proactively go after people that aren't being reported to us and we don't know about in another way. So if we look at across the state how this worked, obviously there were 4 arrests here in Gaston County, but you see the counties highlighted there where other arrests were made. Those locations were identified as being distribution points for child exploitation imagery or videos throughout the state. Various file sharing networks are investigated where we can identify where this file sharing is taking place, and then through investigative techniques are able to determine and pinpoint a location where this is actually occurring. So search warrants were executed across the state in all of these cases to identify who in fact was responsible and also to gather evidence from that. And so that's what led to a total of 16 arrests in this operation. And you'll see mugshots here in just a second from that. Most of these are for that initial search warrant. When it occurred, evidence was found, they were arrested, they were charged. But I'll tell you that investigations don't just normally stop immediately. Further investigation was done in many of these. And so what I'll highlight is right here in the middle of your screen, Mr. Foley, you'll get the information here later. That was a case that occurred in Garner. It was just like many of the others where a search warrant was executed, items were seized. He was arrested based on what was found on those items initially. But after further investigation, it was determined that he was not just distributing or sharing those images. He was, in fact, producing those images. And then in further investigation, it was determined that he was not acting alone. In fact, his wife was with him, and that's who's pictured beside him. Both of them were involved in the production of these images and videos. What I want to stress to you out of this is that these crimes were never reported. And likely they never would have been reported had it not been for this joint operation and all the people you see standing up here in the partnership among these agencies. These would likely be continuing in their criminal acts today, and the at least 5 children that were safeguarded during this operation would likely continue to be victimized today, and there was nobody coming to help them. So again, I'm thankful for the partnership that the 44 agencies that made this operation possible throughout the state, and for the offenders that were arrested, but most importantly for the victims that were safeguarded due to this operation. With that, Acting SAC Kyle Burns from HSI.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyle Burns, and I'm the Acting Special Agent in charge for Homeland Security Investigations here based in Charlotte. I'm honored to be here today with such distinguished colleagues to discuss the successful outcome of Operation Winter Guardian and detail our efforts undertaken to protect the most vulnerable members of our society. The protection of children from predators is one of the most important missions of HSI, and our special agents and law enforcement partners work tirelessly every day to ensure those involved in the production, distribution, and possession of child sexual abuse material and those who travel to engage in illicit sexual conduct with minors are held accountable for those reprehensible actions. On a federal level, to detail the gravity of the situation and why Homeland Security cares so much, over the last few years, there have been over 80 million reports of abusive material to NCMEC, which Zach mentioned before, and also during that same time frame, there's been a 98% increase in online enticements, which is when an individual communicates with a child with the sole intention of committing a sexual crime. Those staggering and chilling statistics only serve to strengthen our collective law enforcement resolve and highlights the importance of collaboration, and HSI will leverage every authority, partnership, and resource at our disposal to ensure that those who prey on children answer for their crimes and are brought to justice. Thank you, Chief, for allowing me to be here today. Thank you, staff, for putting this all together. Thank you all for doing a tremendous job, and for our agents that part and parcel to putting these folks behind bars. Sir?
So there's one additional arrest that occurred that we were getting information on literally up until this afternoon. It's made up in Pennsylvania, so we'll be adding that into the press release, and along with the mugshot of David Charles Oswald. That was another case that Gaston County PD was working on, and then obviously in partnership with law enforcement agencies there in Pennsylvania in Montgomery County. With that, I'm going to open it up briefly for any questions that you might have for any of the three gentlemen here.
Anybody can answer this question, but I mean, across the board increases is what I'm seeing here today. How is social media playing a factor into this, or is it?
So with regards to how is social media playing into the huge increases we're seeing, if you look at the tips that we received from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, most people think that the tips we receive are from the creepy pedophiles in the deep, dark crevices of the internet. That is not true at all. In fact, I don't have 23 numbers, but in 2022, 56% of the tips we received were from Facebook, Instagram, Google. The players that we all know, that's also where the vast majority of the tips are coming from. It's imperative that we educate our kids, and when I say we, I mean law enforcement, but more than law enforcement, I mean we as parents. We have to step up and engage. You've heard the numbers. You heard the 80 million tips to NCMEC. You saw 26,000 tips came to North Carolina just last year. Even with the resources that we dedicated all of our agencies to this, there's no way that we as law enforcement solely can protect children on the internet. It has to be parents working with us to protect children, and it has to be education. We have to educate our kids in how to use the internet safely. The internet is an extremely powerful tool, and just with any powerful tool, if you don't understand how it operates or don't understand how to use it safely, you're likely to get hurt. And that's how I see our job with the internet, is it's an extremely powerful tool. We need to educate our kids on how to use it properly, how to use it safely, so they don't wind up getting hurt. They need to be taught to protect themselves, because we as law enforcement don't have the resources to protect all of the kids out there, unfortunately, so we have to educate them in that.
A lot of tips are coming in as well. Are there any signs that parents should look out for to, see if their child is a victim?
I would say the signs are different for every child. You know your child, and when you see your child's behavior change, that's an indicator that something is happening. So I could give you a list of things that may be abnormal, but it may be not abnormal for that child. But when you see those red flags of what they're doing with their phone, or what they're hiding from on their phone, or an isolated behavior where they no longer are engaging with you in the same way, all of those could be red flags of something that's happening. And it really needs to be an open dialogue, a communication with your child in advance of when there's a problem. Because so many children are fearful that when a problem comes up, they don't want to go tell mom and dad, or they don't want to go tell a teacher, or don't want to go tell anyone else. Whereas if we make it an open conversation on the beginning of that, it's not an abnormal conversation for them to come to us when they have an issue or when they do need help, because the line of communication has already been open before the problem existed.
I have one more question. For the husband and the wife, how do they get to the kids? How they do their job with the kids, I guess? Or did their job put them with kids, sorry?
Garner case.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused by the question. What do you mean, how they did their job with them?
Sorry, did their job put them with the kids? How did they get in contact with these children? The couple that you had mentioned.
I guess the job part threw me off.
Yeah.
Were they teachers? Were they pastors? Like, what put them in contact?
No, not a profession or their job. They had access to children, and they engaged in these acts.
Again, I want to thank everybody for coming this afternoon. As I mentioned at the top, we'll be sending out the electronic version of the press release. You'll have all of the mugshots of the individuals as well as the charges that go along with each of those. And we want to thank you for coming out and taking the time to cover this, and wish you a good afternoon. Thank you.